"You're ungrateful. Get out and never come back." That was the last thing my mother screamed at me during the so-called family meeting. No one defended me, not my dad, not my brother Jared, just silence. So I stood up, grabbed my bag, and left without a word. I didn't cry, I didn't beg, I didn't even slam the door. I walked away with a strange kind of peace I hadn't felt in years. I told myself I was done, that they had finally made it easy for me to let go. Weeks passed. Not a single word from them. Until yesterday. My phone lit up. A text from my dad. "Why haven't you paid the mortgage?" I stared at it for a moment. Then I smiled. "Oh," I replied. "I thought I wasn't welcome." That's when the flood began. Calls, messages, panic. Turns out, cutting me off was a luxury they couldn't afford. But I wasn't done yet, not even close. Growing up, I was the fixer. The quiet one. The responsible daughter who didn't make waves, didn't complain, didn't dare say no. While Jared failed out of community college and bounced from job to job, I worked part-time at a diner all through high school. I took out loans, earned scholarships, graduated early, and landed a job in corporate finance before I was 23. I never asked for help, not once. But my parents? They needed help constantly. At first, I gave it willingly. A few $100s here to cover groceries, some utilities when Dad's hours got cut, a temporary contribution to the mortgage when the bank started calling. I didn't blink. They were my family, and family helps each other, right? Only, it never felt mutual. I watched as Jared moved back in at 26, to find himself lounging on the couch all day, gaming like it was his full-time job. My parents defended him relentlessly. "He's just figuring things out," Mom would say. "He's sensitive. Not everyone's like you, Madeline." That stung more than I liked to admit. They praised Jared's smallest effort like it was a miracle. Meanwhile, I was expected to sacrifice in silence. When I covered the mortgage for 3 months straight, no one thanked me. They just stopped mentioning the bills like they paid themselves. I brushed it off. I told myself I didn't need their praise. But resentment has a way of curling up in your chest like a sleeping animal, quiet at first, until it starts to claw at your ribs. Still, I kept showing up. I kept giving. Because I thought maybe one day, they'd see me. The breaking point came one Sunday. During one of our family check-ins, Jared was complaining about how stressed he felt being in between phases, and Mom looked straight at me and said, "Well, at least someone in this house isn't completely selfish." I blinked. "Wait, what?" Then she added, "You've been distant lately, cold. Honestly, it's disappointing. We raised you better than this." I felt like I'd been slapped. That's when I realized. They didn't see what I gave, only what I didn't. They didn't see the overtime I pulled to make sure they didn't lose their home. They didn't see how every check I sent meant skipping dinners, vacations, or a new car I desperately needed. All they saw was what was missing, what wasn't enough. So, when they called me ungrateful at that meeting weeks later and told me to leave, I did. Not because I agreed, but because I finally understood. They were never going to see me as anything more than a bank account with a heartbeat. And if I stayed, I'd just keep losing myself in their expectations. So I left. And I didn't look back. Not until they came crawling. They called it a family meeting. Dad sent a group text the night before. "Let's all sit down tomorrow, talk about some things. Just want us to be on the same page." I should have known something was off when I walked in and saw Jared already slouched on the couch, arms crossed like he was waiting for a show. Mom stood by the kitchen island, lips tight, eyes narrowed, her hands gripping a folder like it held my sentencing. I hadn't even taken off my coat before Mom jumped in. "We need to talk about the mortgage," she said coldly. "And your contribution." I blinked. "My contribution?" Dad cleared his throat, trying for calm. "Your mother and I have been crunching numbers. It's just not sustainable for us anymore. We're struggling. We need you to start covering all of it, full amount, every month." I looked at them, stunned. "I've already been paying half for over a year." Mom scoffed. Yes, but that was when things were easier. Now it's harder. Then maybe Jared could, I started, but Mom slammed the folder shut. Do not throw that in his face. He's trying. I turned to Jared. Trying what, exactly? He hasn't worked in almost a year. He shrugged, unbothered. You're the one with the finance job? Why is it such a big deal for you? That's when it hit me. This wasn't a meeting. This was an ambush. A scripted moment, with me cast as the villain for not doing enough, while Jared got to play the wounded dreamer. I kept my voice low. You all decided this already, didn't you? This was never a discussion. We're family, Dad said firmly. Families support each other. No, I said, standing up slowly. Families don't manipulate each other. They don't guilt, trip the one person keeping the lights on while the other plays Xbox all day. Jared rolled his eyes. You always make everything about money. And you never make anything about responsibility? I snapped. That's when Mom exploded. You're ungrateful. After everything we've done for you, every sacrifice, we ask for a little help, and you act like we're criminals. I felt my chest tighten, not with sadness but clarity. They weren't hearing me. They never had. They just needed me to stay useful. And when I stopped being convenient, I became disposable. Mom pointed to the door. Get out. If you're not going to support this family, don't bother showing your face here again. The silence that followed was deafening. I looked at my dad, at Jared. No one spoke. No one stopped her. So I walked out. No rage, no dramatic exit. Just a final step across a line I hadn't even realized I'd been towing for years. And as I shut the door behind me, I didn't feel broken. I felt free. But that feeling, beautiful as it was, wouldn't last. Because the fallout was just beginning. The first few days after I left were oddly peaceful. I stayed with a friend for a week, then signed a short-term lease on a quiet apartment overlooking the edge of town. It wasn't anything fancy, just a one-bedroom with creaky floors and mismatched blinds, but it was mine. For the first time in years, I could walk into a space that didn't feel like it was full of demands. No sticky notes with reminders about payments. No snide comments about being too busy to visit. No, Jared. It was quiet. Too quiet, maybe. But I needed that silence to hear myself again. At first, I kept checking my phone out of habit, expecting some kind of apology, some bridge-building message, but there was nothing. Not a word. Not from Mom. Not from Dad. Not even a passive-aggressive emoji from Jared. They were serious. And I was supposed to feel punished. But I didn't. I slept better. I ate more. I even laughed with my coworkers without feeling like I was betraying someone. My therapist said I was finally creating boundaries. I called it survival. I paid off a lingering credit card, took myself out to dinner, and started planning a long overdue vacation. I finally breathed. Weeks passed. Then, one Tuesday mornings, exactly 21 days after I walked out, I got a text. From Dad. Hey, just wondering, did you already send this month's mortgage payment? I stared at the screen. No. How are you? No, we miss you. No. Can we talk? Just straight to business. I could almost hear his voice. Low, casual, pretending it was just a small oversight on my part. I smiled, not because it was funny, but because it was so perfectly them. They didn't care that I was gone. They cared that my money went with me. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I poured myself a cup of coffee and stared out the window at the city below, people rushing to jobs, chasing buses, grabbing breakfast, living their lives. For once, I wasn't rushing to rescue anyone. 10 minutes later, I texted back. Oh, I thought I wasn't welcome anymore. 3 dots appeared almost instantly. Then disappeared. Then reappeared. I set my phone down. It buzzed once. Then again. Then again. By the time I picked it back up, the screen was lighting up like it was on fire. This isn't the time to be petty. We need your help, Maddie. The bank called. They're threatening foreclosure. Then the cherry on top from Jared. Wow. Way to destroy the family just to prove a point. And there it was. The silence had finally cracked. But they weren't calling out of love. They were calling because their safety net had walked away. And I was just getting started. I didn't respond. Not immediately. Not even after Mom's name popped up on my screen with a flurry of messages that read more like scripted performances than genuine concern. How could you do this to us? The house means everything to this family. You're punishing your parents over a silly argument? Then came the voice messages long, breathy, dramatic ones. In one, she was crying. In another, she was enraged. In all of them, I was the villain. But the story kept changing. First, I was cruel. Then I was immature. Then I was just confused and hurting, and they understood. It was classic emotional whiplash. Push, then pull. Shame, then sugar. But the more they tried, the more I realized how many times I had fallen for this cycle before. Every time I said no, they pushed harder until I said yes. Every time I drew a boundary, they painted it as betrayal. So this time I didn't flinch. Instead, I opened my banking app and stared at the long list of past transactions labeled mortgage, family home. Thousands of dollars. Month after month. Year after year. And now they were demanding more. Like nothing had changed. Like they hadn't kicked me out. Like the word ungrateful hadn't been hurled at me in front of my brother while he sat there doing nothing. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. They wanted me to forget. To fold. To come back and carry the weight quietly. But I wasn't the same girl who stayed silent to keep the peace. My phone buzzed again. Jared, you seriously gonna ignore all of us? Grow up. And there it was, the guilt grenade. He had always known how to time a thou to make it seem like I was the problem for not endlessly giving. The problem for not setting myself on fire to keep them warm. I finally responded. I'm not ignoring you. I'm watching you all panic-hand for once. I'm not rushing in. 3 minutes passed. Then Jared replied. You're being selfish. I smiled bitterly. That word again. It was wild how selfish only ever came up when I stopped giving. I wanted to scream back, to send a wall of truth, to finally say every quiet thing I'd swallowed over the years, but I didn't. Instead, I typed just 4 words. Not my problem anymore. And hit send. That message must have set off an alarm because not 5 seconds later, my phone rang. Mom. I let it go to voicemail. Then Dad. Declined. Then a group call. I turned off the ringer and tossed my phone onto the couch. I wasn't ready to talk. Not until I had the final piece of the puzzle. Because something told me. They weren't just behind on payments now. They'd been behind for a long, long time. And I had the receipts to prove it. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, heart pounding not from guilt, but from clarity. I was finally starting to piece it together. The late-night texts, the vague explanations, the urgency that only seemed to show up when my money didn't. Where had it all gone? By morning, I had made up my mind. I called the bank. It took 3 transfers and 15 minutes on hold, but eventually, I got someone who could pull up my parents' mortgage account. I explained carefully that I had been helping manage the payments until recently and just wanted to confirm where things stood. The woman on the other end hesitated. Well, I can't disclose too much since the account isn't in your name, but I can tell you this, the account has been in arrears for several months. I frowned. How many is several? Another pause. Looks like they've only made partial payments over the past 8 months. 8 months. I felt the air leave my lungs. That meant, even when I was still sending money, they weren't paying the full mortgage. I stared at the wall for a long time after that. My thoughts weren't loud. They were sharp, precise, surgical. They had lied. Repeatedly. They took my help, smiled to my face, and let the house rot from the inside out. And what had they used the money for? New clothes for Jared? Another self-care retreat for Mom? Dad's craft beer hobby? I remembered the random spa receipts I found once when using Mom's laptop. The sudden new patio furniture Jared bragged about on Instagram. The, "Oh, we're doing fine now," tone they used anytime I asked how things were going. They had been pocketing the extra money while I thought I was saving their home. I opened my banking app again. My hands trembled not from fear, but rage. I added up all my transfers from the last year. The number hit 5 figures. Clean, no strings, no questions asked. And they had let it bleed into foreclosure anyway. My phone buzzed again. Jared. "Please, just call Mom. She's a mess." I snorted. She was a mess? I was a mess for years while she weaponized my loyalty. While she used phrases like, "Don't you love us?" Or, "We raised you," every time I hesitated to empty my account for them. Well, love didn't mean handing over your financial future. Not anymore. I cracked my knuckles, tapped back a reply. "Funny, you all seemed just fine when the money was flowing." "Where did it go, Jared?" 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then nothing. I waited. Still nothing. That silence told me everything. They never thought I'd ask. They never thought I'd stop. But I had. And now? I was just getting started. By noon, my phone had turned into a battlefield. Missed calls from Mom. Voicemails from Dad. Jared switching between guilt and passive aggression, like it was a sport. But I didn't answer. Not until Mom called again, this time 5 times in a row. I sighed, grabbed the phone, and finally picked up on the 6th ring. The moment I said hello, her voice came through like a tidal wave. "Madeline, what is wrong with you? You can't just abandon your family like this." I stayed silent. Let her scream. Let her twist it all into her usual performance of martyrdom. When she finally stopped to breathe, I spoke calmly. "Where did the money go, Mom?" Silence. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't even sound angry. That seemed to unsettle her more than yelling ever could. What are you talking about?" "The mortgage," I said, slowly. "The money I've been sending. The payments the bank says haven't been made for almost a year. Where did it go?" She huffed. Stammered. "Well, some of it went to bills. Groceries. You know life isn't cheap, Maddie. Groceries don't cost $5,000 a month. Your father needed some dental work," she added hastily. "And the car. Jared's car broke down. It was an emergency." I closed my eyes and inhaled through my nose. Jared's Carth one, I saw him showing off online with custom rims and a brand new stereo system. Right. That emergency. "So, instead of paying the mortgage," I said slowly, "you prioritized spa days, takeout, and Jared's sound system?" She exploded again. "Don't you dare make it sound like we were being reckless. We've sacrificed so much for you." That line. That same tired line. I'd heard it since I was 16, taking on shifts after school while Jared played video games all day. "You didn't sacrifice," I said coldly. "You expected me to keep paying, no matter what. And now that I've stopped, everything's collapsing. That's not my failure. That's yours." Another pause. Then came Dad's voice. He must have taken the phone. "Madeline, please. We just need help this month. Just enough to stop the bank from taking the house. We swear we'll fix things after that." I almost laughed. Fix things? Like how you were fixing them all those other months while I was unknowingly funding your cover-ups. That's not fair. "No," I cut in. "What's not fair is being thrown out of a house I helped pay for. What's not fair is being called ungrateful after years of silent sacrifice." I stood up and began pacing. "Let me ask you something," I continued. "If I had never asked about the mortgage, how long were you going to keep pretending everything was fine? Another year? 5? Until the house was taken and I was blamed for not saving it?" There was no answer. Just breathing. Then I heard Mom again, quieter this time. "We didn't mean to lie. We were scared. We thought if we told you, you'd stop helping." So you lied to keep the money flowing, I said flatly. We didn't see another way. I exhaled slowly. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from release. I had waited years for this conversation, this truth. There's always another way, I said. But you didn't want it. You wanted the easy way. You wanted me. Then I gave them what they feared most. Finality. Sell the house. Maddie, no please. Sell the house. Figure it out like adults. I'm done being your bailout plan. But this is our family home. And you threw me out of it? Dead silence. And then I hung up. No goodbyes. No second chances. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the one being left behind. I was the one walking away by choice. And this time, I wasn't turning back. The next 48 hours were quiet, too quiet. No calls, no texts, no guilt-drenched voicemails. Just stillness. It was almost eerie. But I knew better. That was the silence of a storm gathering force. Sure enough, on day 3, it hit. A text from Jared. Thanks a lot, Maddie. They're talking about moving in with me now. I hope you're happy. I rolled my eyes so hard I almost gave myself a headache. Happy? No. Resolved? Yes. They kicked me out, not the other way around, I replied. 10 seconds later, he fired back. Yeah, well, maybe if you weren't so cold all the time, they wouldn't have to. You broke, Mom. Ah, there it was again. That magical family logic. Hurt someone by drawing a boundary, then blame them for the fallout. But I wasn't playing along anymore. She broke herself by lying. You just helped. Jared left me on red. Later that night, I got an email from my dad, a full essay. It was classic dad-measured tone, passive regret, phrased to sound like an olive branch but laced with veiled manipulation. He said he was disappointed in how things had escalated. He hoped I'd remember where I came from. He forgave me for walking away, as if forgiveness was his to give. What he didn't say. Sorry. We lied. Thank you. Instead, he attached a list of their expenses for the last 3 months. Bolded at the top was the overdue mortgage amount, like that was supposed to move me. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened a new spreadsheet, titled it Documented Transfers, and started cataloging every dollar I'd sent them in the last 2 years. I matched it with bank receipts, organized by month, highlighted the ones labeled mortgage, groceries, utilities. Just in case. Because something told me they might try to twist this further. I wasn't being paranoid, I was being prepared. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about the story they'd tell when I refused to clean up their mess. Would they say I was bitter? Ungrateful? Emotionally unstable? Probably all of the above. But I had receipts now, literal and emotional. They could rewrite history all they wanted. I just wasn't going to fund the production. The next morning, Mom texted again. Short this time. We're selling the house. No greeting. No warmth. Just resignation. But you know what? That one hit harder than all the yelling in the world. Because it meant they finally understood. I wasn't coming back. Not as a safety net. Not as a daughter to be guilt-tripped into submission. Not as the person they thought would always say yes. They could sell the house. I'd already bought my freedom. The day they sold the house, I didn't cry. I thought I might. I thought maybe there would be some hollow ache in my chest when the papers were signed, when the furniture was hauled away, when the front door, the one they once slammed in my face, was closed for good. But instead, I felt nothing. No grief. No guilt. Just space. Space where pain used to live. I heard from a distant cousin that my parents were moving into a rental near Jared's apartment, that they were downsizing and starting fresh. They didn't tell me directly. And I didn't ask. It was strange, watching my childhood home vanish from my life like a fading photograph phone that had long stopped resembling reality. Stranger still, I didn't miss it. I didn't miss the walls that echoed with conditional love. I didn't miss the feeling of being useful instead of valued. I didn't miss pretending I was part of something I never truly belonged to. People love to talk about family as if it's sacred, as if blood demands loyalty, as if saying no to toxic expectations is somehow cold or cruel. But here's what I've learned. Family isn't who you're born to. It's who respects your boundaries when you set them. It's who sees your worth even when you're not serving a purpose. It's the friend who helped me move that first night. The coworker who brought me lunch when I looked too tired to ask. The barista who remembered my name before my order. And most of all, it's me. For the first time, I chose me. I paid my own rent, ate my own meals, and built a space where no one raised their voice when I said no, where love didn't come with invoices. Still, part of me wonders. Was I too harsh? Was there another way? But then, I remember the silence after they kicked me out. The months of lies. The years of being the responsible one, while everyone else got to be soft, chaotic, forgiven. And I know, I didn't break the family. I just stopped letting them break me. So here I am, in my own apartment, my own life, writing this with no intention to send it. Not looking for approval. Not asking for pity. Just sharing it because maybe someone out there needs to hear this. Saying no doesn't make you cruel. Walking away doesn't make you heartless. And holding others accountable doesn't make you ungrateful. It just makes you free. And for the first time in my life, I am.